Hi guys, my name is Todd Jason and welcome to this presentation, which is called The 5 Shifts to Living a Porn-Free Life. And what we're going to cover today is a comprehensive system for men to achieve 100% freedom from porn. So first I'd like to share who this presentation is for. And this is for guys who recognize that porn has become a big problem in their lives and they've tried to stop before, but unsuccessfully. This is for men who have had enough of this porn addiction, and for guys who are ready to take this on and solve it once and for all. And this is for men who want a long-term and sustainable solution and not some quick fix that truly never seems to last. This presentation is for professional men who otherwise have their lives together, guys who are successful in their work and their relationships, but live with this compulsion as a, quote, dirty little secret. And this is for guys who know that there is still so much more for them to accomplish and who are interested in transforming this addictive pattern into greater success. And lastly, this is for guys who feel alone in this dilemma without a solid place to turn. So in the next 45 minutes, you'll gain some clear insight as to why your previous attempts to quit have been unsuccessful. And you'll also be shown a comprehensive approach that can solve the problem over the long term. You'll be exposed to 5 foundational techniques that when you practice them consistently, they dissolve porn addiction from the inside out. And you're going to be shown how to practice the system starting today and given a blueprint to knock this addiction out of your life. Your anxiety regarding this problem will shift into excitement and inspiration, believe it or not, as you begin to see the situation as a huge opportunity. And you'll feel confident that you can take this on, that right now is your time, because you've been shown a path that has worked for many other men, and it makes sense to you on multiple levels. And lastly, you're going to gain access to an emerging brotherhood of guys who are dealing with similar challenges and who are here to support you. So my promise to you is a step-by-step strategy to completely ridding yourself of porn addiction and all the unnecessary anxiety and suffering that comes with it. So before we get to all the good stuff, I want to check in with you, and I want to see if any of these statements sounds like you. First, do you ever beat yourself up thinking, I should be able to stop and control this? But you find yourself in a vicious cycle of quitting and then watching porn again and again. Have you become a master at painting a pretty picture of your life, but often think, man, if people knew the truth about what I really do, it would be devastating? Has your regular sexual performance been impacted? And do you inherently know that this addiction is obscuring what used to be healthy desires and activity? Do you ever rationalize that your porn addiction is a good thing because it makes you feel good and that you need it? And have your deceptions around this issue grown? And do you find yourself pushing limits on how much you can get away with? And have your fantasies changed and become more fringe? And do you notice a significant increase in your day-to-day sexualizing of people and situations? To sum up, do you feel trapped by your porn addiction and powerless to change it? So if any of these statements sound like you, or they sound familiar and they resonate, I have good news for you, believe it or not. And the good news is that porn and these statements are not the real problem. They're symptoms and they're symbols of something else that's going on. And the real issue is that you haven't enacted a truly comprehensive approach for taking this on from a multi-dimensional perspective. And you haven't integrated what we call the 5 shifts to living a porn-free life. Now, before we get to what these shifts actually are, it's important for you to understand what happens when you cross this bridge and you get there. Because when you do download these shifts and you practice them over a short period of time, a bunch of things happen. And first, you'll become incredibly more productive in your work. And you'll be proactive and you'll start accomplishing things that you always labeled for later. You'll radiate a quiet and confident hum of power and certainty, and all kinds of amazing people and opportunities will all of a sudden be attracted to you and gravitate towards you. And life will become much easier and in flow. And the reason why is that a lot of your anxiety and a lot of the overwhelm that you have will diminish, and you won't have to push so hard to accomplish things. And you're going to wake up each morning with incredible clarity and the feeling of being unstoppable. And you'll be more present with your family and friends, and you'll become that go-to guy for other people's problems. And truthfully, you're going to find a lot of joy in helping other people in this way. And lastly, you'll feel and you'll also look like the man you were always meant to become, healthy, strong, and vibrant. And that piece about looking is interesting because one of the things that we found is that when men take this on and they transform their porn addiction, and we're going to show you how to do this, a lot of times men slim down, they become more fit, bags under their eyes disappear, their eyes actually become clearer. I've seen men who have their hair grow back. I've seen men whose gray hair turns back to their natural color. So while the feeling part and the life part is amazing, there's also some physical things that really happen when a man takes this on. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Todd Jason. And for the last 20 years, I've been working in the personal growth and development world. And I've had the pleasure and really the honor to work with some of the most incredible cutting edge thinkers, people like Ken Wilber, and Eckhart Tolle, and Deepak Chopra, and so many others. And I've created curriculum with these folks, and I've studied with them, and I've helped them launch their businesses and their courses. I've also become a coach of coaches because I've helped so many thought leaders and teachers purify and unleash their gifts. But my specialty, guys, is working with men on porn addiction and helping them to transform this challenge into a life of freedom and excitement. And the reason why is because, and what I want to talk about here is how I've uncovered these 5 shifts. And the reason why is that this has been a problem in my life for a very long time. In fact, I was one of those guys, one of those kids who started his addiction in this world at a very young age. And somehow, I don't know how, but I discovered masturbation and orgasm at the age of 4 or 5 years old. And when I began working in the internet industry in the mid-1990s, this is when the internet started to boom. And I was actually working in that industry. And this is also when the online porn business began to boom. So it became perfect fodder for my problem because I had always used masturbation and orgasm as a way to check out, as a way to numb myself. It was always my go-to behavior, my go-to activity. And all of a sudden, when the internet started booming, and from a click of a button, I had access to limitless images and videos, this was it. And I got hooked. And I want to state right now that millions of men have become hooked over the years. Tens of millions of men in our country alone have a very serious porn addiction. And I talk about it so seriously, but the truth is that it's a really big underlying problem in our society. And when I started working in the personal growth and development world, I had this as my dirty little secret. You know, the people I was working with didn't know that I had this problem because part of what happens for men is that we're very isolated. The nature of porn and porn addiction is isolation. We don't do it in public, obviously. This is something that's kind of to ourselves, and we do it in private. And it's also the kind of thing that we don't talk about with our friends and our colleagues. So it's very hard to process the information, right? I give you credit even for being here in this presentation because not a lot of men, take the time to actually look at this. And for me, it all stopped when I met the woman that I would eventually marry. And our agreement and our love was all around having a family and building a life together. And I knew in that moment that I could not enter that agreement. I could not build that life if I had this problem persist. I just knew that it drained my energy. I knew that it drained my resources. It drained my money. It drained my time. And the idea of becoming a father while I had this little secret, I couldn't do it. And so what I ended up doing was sequestering myself for a couple of weeks. And, I took advantage of the fact that I had been working in the growth industry and I had access to all these great teachers and practices. And I said, hey, you got to figure out a way to devise a program to end this once and for all, because you cannot, with the right mind, go out and get married and have a family with this going on. And that was the beginning of these 5 shifts, and that was many years ago. And since then, these practices have become much more streamlined and much more potent. And it's because not only I've gone through it, but hundreds of men, perhaps thousands of men, have enacted what you're about to see with great success. So I share my story with you because I want you to know that this is not just something that I'm doing because I think it's cool or necessary. And while I know it's necessary, this is also very close to home for me. This is close to my heart because this was my big issue that I had to overcome. And so what I like to talk about with porn addiction is busting loose and how to work with these 5 shifts. Because there are 5 very specific shifts and perspectives and practices that you must first understand and then practice consistently over a period of time in order to break free from this. So I want to walk you through them right now. And the way that this begins, the first shift, is that you must shift your negative thinking and see this as a huge opportunity. And there are 2 primary reasons why men fail to bust through their porn addictions. And the first is that they never fully address it. Now, this is the case for 90 to 99% of the men out there. Because as I said, there are tens of millions of men in our country alone that have some form of porn addiction. But most of them never actually address it. And there are many reasons for this. First off, as I said before, this isn't the kind of thing that's easy to talk about. There's not a lot of space for us to actually deal with this issue. There's a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of hiding around it. And there's a lot of isolation around it. Plus, there's also, it's very easily to rationalize that it's not that big of a problem. And most men have to come to a point where they look themselves in the mirror, as I did, and as thousands of men that I've talked to do, say, you know what, this is a problem, right? And when you do that, it starts the shifting point. But the second reason that most men fail to bust through it is that when they do agree to enter into some form of healing process, they have the belief that it's going to be really hard with tons of unpleasant work. And we have to talk about that because what I'm going to do is bust that myth right now because it's absolutely not true. And what I'm here to tell you is that you should be ecstatic that you have this addiction. And I know that sounds crazy, but this is flat out the biggest opportunity for growth and transformation you may ever have in this lifetime. And the reason why is that this is not about stopping porn addiction. In fact, I want to share that men fail when they're trying to stop porn. It actually doesn't work. You can't just stop porn, and there's reasons why, and we'll go over that. But when you shift your belief and you understand that this is about stopping porn and it's about creating an extraordinary life for yourself and accomplishing the dreams that you've always had, and that this is about understanding the energy that pulls you towards porn and shifting that energy into the things that you really want to have happen, it's a huge difference. It's an inspiring, motivating belief. And we must begin with that belief. So this first shift is absolutely necessary. And what you need to understand is that the energy that causes the pull towards porn can be transmuted into other areas of your life, right? So we have to look at the things that you want to create and look at the chasm that you're living in right now by which you don't have those things. So are you jumping up and down yet, right? Probably not. But I hope you get the sense of what I'm talking about, that the way that we begin this, the way that you transmute and actually end porn forever is to understand that this is not only about stopping porn. This is actually about connecting with the possibility of your highest potentials. This is about envisioning the greatest version of yourself, the man who accomplishes all these wonderful things, and putting that energy and harnessing it into that area. Now, one of the things you're going to notice in all of these shifts is that they are not philosophical forays, meaning that this isn't just mental talk, right? These aren't just things you're going to think about and meditate on. Each one of these shifts are practice-oriented. And it's really important to know that because in order for you to bust through this and end that secret life forever, you need to start taking action. Practices that are designed and work in concert with one another that end this activity and help you create an amazing life. So this first shift starts with writing and then signing a very clear intention, a statement that you write with help that puts it out there very clearly that you are taking this on and you understand the reasons why and you understand what's at stake. And the second thing is to craft a very clear motivations worksheet, that is also done in a particular way. So that way you can get very connected with your motivations. And when you start here and you shift your belief to opportunity, to excitement, to even fun, and you connect with the intention and the motivations, you are setting yourself up for success. One of my teachers always says, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so how we begin something is how we end it. And so when we begin this process, this is where we must begin. So Mike wrote in that this addiction has been a nasty little secret in my life for a long time. And I walked into this skeptical, but also hopeful. I walked out with so much more healing than I ever could have imagined. And I don't have any fear it's ever coming back. I am incredibly grateful and indebted to this work. Thank you. And my whole family thanks you as well. So let's move on to the second shift. And this one is that you must gain a basic understanding of the neurology of porn and then apply proven techniques that rewires the affected pathways in the brain. That's a big sentence and we're going to break it down. But one of the ways I like to explain this is by starting with a quote from one of my teachers, and he likes to remain anonymous for some reason. But what he says is that it is infinitely easier to change what we can see than that which lives in oblivion. Okay? And what that means is that when we're taking this on, we must understand the map of our porn addiction. And there's two ways to understand the map. And the first is to understand the basic brain chemistry, the structures and the neurological processes that is involved with our addiction. And once we understand this, it will radically amplify our ability to succeed. Now, with this said, I want to share that I've worked with thousands of men in this process. And some men, when they hear this, they get excited because it means that they can geek out and get really technical and scientific about understanding like the details and the chemicals and all the interactions in the brain that happen with porn addiction. And I'll tell you that if you are inclined to feel that way, it's a huge rabbit hole and you could spend a year just doing research. But on the other side, I'm here to tell you that that is not advised. And what I've seen is that can often be a distraction, right? And it distracts men from actually doing some of the other things that are absolutely necessary to break this addiction and create an extraordinary life for yourself. So what we propose is that you must understand the basics, okay? We must create a map that you understand in general what's going on in terms of the neurology. But you don't need to understand like a million different details because that will have you spinning down a rabbit hole mentally that is not actually going to solve the problem from a comprehensive approach, okay? So the second way that we build our map is to map out your unique path and what we call your unique behavioral porn process, okay? And what that means is that we all have a very particular map by which porn and all the ensuing activities show up in our lives. Now, while your path is certainly unique to you, there is a general map for how men enter into this process. And this is, been proven with many teachers, but the way that it works is that it starts with a trigger, and that trigger leads to the pull, and then oftentimes there's a battle. If you're trying to stop and it's bad and you don't want to do it, and that battle can last 1 second, or that battle can last 3 months. Then at some point there's a surrender, and then you reach your goal, and then there's relief after until the trigger starts again. Okay, so while there's a general map here that most men follow, the important thing to look at is what your unique playing field is within this, okay? And so what we have men do is take some time, not a tremendous amount of time, but to actually map out what goes on in this cycle. What goes on? And when you start doing this, you start seeing the terrain. You start looking at yourself as an observer, right? You start becoming the doctor to your own issue. And this heightens your awareness. And what it does is it gives you the ability to actually start healing yourself not from a short-term perspective, but from a very long-term sustainable standpoint, okay? So most people try to heal porn addiction by addressing the pull to battle stage. They do this with strategies like abstinence or rebooting and really using willpower. And I want to tell you that willpower is absolutely integral in healing porn addiction. Okay, you need to have some willpower, but you cannot muscle your way through this problem solely. Okay, it's a pathway to failure. And a lot of guys get really spun out and frustrated because you can't just say, I'm never going to do it again, and just muscle your way. And this is why a comprehensive approach is necessary. And as we go through these shifts, you're going to start to understand why. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming because all these things don't take very long to do, but they work in concert with one another. And they've been tested for years and years, okay, with effectiveness. So just using willpower is one of the big myths. It's one of the big things that people really struggle with, and they actually can't get to the other side of it. So the practice for this shift is a particular toolkit that we've designed, and it includes brainwave entrainment music, a process or technique that we call self-talk. There's some meditation and some visualization, and other curated components that help to shift the neurology of your porn addiction, to actually shift the brainwave frequencies and the patterns that are occurring during your addiction. And as you spend some time getting familiar with the terrain and you understand your map, you understand the chemicals and the neurology, and then you understand your unique porn process, and you start applying this toolkit, it sets yourself up for radical change. So Richard wrote in that my life doesn't even resemble what it did 3 short months ago. It's so unrecognizable, in fact, that I'm really taking a step back and basking in the fresh air and the loftier perspective. The spaciousness in my headspace is just fantastic right now. I woke up this morning with a really special mental vibration, and I did everything I could to catch it and imprint it on my entire day. I am clear-minded, focused, and moving about the cabin with greater purpose and flow. So shift number 3. You must squash your pull towards porn by using your physical body and adapt a series of practices and exercises specifically designed to do this. Now, this shift is absent in almost every program and modality for solving our porn problem that I've ever seen, and it blows my mind. And I actually just want to say that I've told you that my problem has persisted since a very young age. I've also gone through, I don't know how many countless programs, including 12-step programs. I've gone through therapy. I've gone into in-house programs. I've used plant medicines. I've done so much to actually try to really solve this problem. And it wasn't until I adapted these shifts and practiced them that it really worked. But in almost everything that I did previously, the physical part wasn't there. And why it blows my mind is that everything is energy, and energy flows through our bodies. And when we consciously utilize the healing power of our own physical energy, it greatly accelerates your healing. It gives you a chance for success. And so what we do is that we put forth a very particular physical program for tackling this issue. And the framework that we use is a scaffold. So one of the things that we look at is that there's two of the most powerful times in 24-hour period for a man for transformation, where a man can actually really take control and imprint some impactful things for the rest of the day or the rest of the night, is first thing in the morning when he wakes and right before he goes to bed at night and enters dream time. And so we work with those 2 times. And in the morning, we establish a routine that imprints strength and confidence for the day, right? Right when a man wakes up, right when your eyes open. And similar for the end of the day. And we do this through some movement, some stretching, and some breathing. And I want to say that this program that I'm talking about here doesn't replace what you currently do. I mean, you might be, some amazing yogi, or you might be a big weightlifter, or you might be a runner and run marathons. That's fine. Okay. And this program, this physical routine that we suggest doesn't replace that. It's really an addendum. And really what it is, it's a glue that kind of gives you a linchpin to latch onto that really starts to dissolve your porn addiction from the inside out. We also use something called pattern interrupt. And these are practices that we give you that interrupt your unconscious physical patterning each day. Because what we found is that, we go through our days and a lot of what we do is unconscious. The way that we shower, the way that we, towel dry ourselves, the way that we open doors, the way that we walk, the way that we, there's many things that we do that are just very unconscious. And when we begin to interrupt those patterns, we're raising awareness about how we're showing up in the world. And so in the previous shift, we talked about cognitive pattern interrupt, right? By introducing brainwave entrainment and some practices, but we must also physically interrupt our patterns. And when we're doing that with the intention to dissolve porn addiction, with the idea that we can create an amazing life by doing so, you are setting yourself up, not only just to get rid of this addiction, but you're setting yourself up to become a really powerful man, the man that you were always meant to be. So that's how we use the physical body as part of a comprehensive approach. So let's move on. Now, the fourth shift is one that I say works 100% of the time. And this really is, guys, the fastest way to transform your porn addiction. And what it is that you must craft what we call a clear future blueprint for yourself by using the power of emotions. Now, in the second shift, we talked about, the cognitive, the mental, kind of the brainwave, the very scientific stuff. In the last shift, we talked about the physical body. Now here we are in the fourth one, and we're talking about the emotions. And a lot of guys don't like the E word. We don't like to deal with our emotions. We don't like to feel. But I am telling you that when you enact this shift and you practice what I'm about to share, it is the sword that cuts through the addiction for the long term. And the truth is that you are not addicted to porn, and you're not addicted to sex, and you're not addicted to orgasm. What you're addicted to is the way that these things make you feel, okay? And in order to break the addiction for good, you must understand the feelings associated with the goal of the addiction, and then be able to recreate them using different means. I'm going to say that again because it is perhaps the most important line in this entire presentation, that in order to break the addiction for good, you must understand the feelings associated with the goal of the addiction and then be able to recreate them using different means, okay? And so this is about your life, okay? And this is about this notion that there's a future version of yourself, a man that you want to become. And this man has achieved things that you currently haven't achieved. And it might be around your work, it might be around your career, maybe you want to start a business, maybe you want to start a family, maybe you just want to be more present and loving with your kids and your family right now. Maybe you want to build a house, in the dream place. Maybe you want to become a digital nomad and you want to travel around the world having adventures and speaking on stage. I don't know what it is for you, okay? Because every man is different. But when we take a moment and we spend some time crafting and contemplating who this man is and what his life is like, and the way that we do this is to think with the end in mind, right? So what we do is we push guys to think with the very end of their lives in mind, and then to practice what it feels like to have accomplished everything you ever dreamed, because there's a feeling associated with that success. There's feelings associated with that abundance and with that connection and with that kind of fulfillment, right? And when you do that and you practice it in a particular way, it becomes a superpower that gives you the ability to transform your porn addiction with ease. Now, the question for this is, how do we do it, right? What's the practice involved with crafting your future blueprint? Now, there's a process here, and the process starts with writing your own eulogy. And you're probably thinking, man, Todd, this is a great presentation, porn addiction and writing my eulogy, quite morbid. But it isn't morbid. And I'll argue that the practice of writing your eulogy, when done in a particular way, so we have a certain way that we have men write this eulogy. We have them spend about a week on it. When you think with the end in mind of your life, and you think about your legacy, and you think about what you want to have said about you when you're no longer here, and then you actually practice feeling what that's like. And this is where most things this is where most men just don't get connected with their actual potential future. But when you actually practice the feeling of what that future looks like through writing the eulogy, it is just a massive superpower, okay? And so this is using emotion and crafting that future blueprint. So Neem wrote in that this has been a game changer for me. And I walked in with the intention to free myself of whatever limits I had about myself and my work. And I flew out with a sense of strength and freedom that I've never felt before, to have a lasting impact on others through my work. I also feel more in flow with life and have a greater ability to handle the uncertainties that come my way. And the fifth shift is a continuation, in a sense, of the fourth. And that is that you must define the qualities of this new man, of the man who has the legacy that you're going to create, and the man who thrives without porn. And then practice these qualities every day until they become your default character. Okay? And so there's a particular way to do this. And what we do is we have men locate their four. And these are the four key qualities that this new man, the man that creates that legacy, okay, that he behaves with each day, okay? And really, these are qualities that you aren't really good at right now, okay? And there's a way that you can actually identify what those qualities are. For me, I realized that I had a lot of things that I thought were good, but I wasn't disciplined, and I wasn't really being generous. I thought I was, but my life was really about me. And so I really practiced things like persistence and discipline and generosity. And I did it in a very particular way. And you need to practice these qualities every day. And this leads to greatness, okay? And so you might be thinking, well, how do I practice qualities? And this is really where the rubber meets the road in this presentation, okay? Because what we do is we have men actually get there really fast. And we have them engage in a pretty old, ancient tracking practice. It actually comes from a Buddhist background. And this tracking practice empowers you to embody these qualities that you define, that you self-define, but you practice them every day. And really what happens is, in a sense, you become an actor in your own life, right? You define what you want to create, and then you have to start acting as that man does. And, that kind of sounds random when I say it, but when you're actually holding yourself accountable through a particular tracking practice and you're writing it down, it becomes a linchpin, right? And you actually start looking at it. And really what happens is that you start to change very fast, and it becomes fun. It becomes magical, okay? And, when you practice this, you do it with imagination, and you do it with creativity, and you do it with levity. And, like I said, it creates extraordinary shifts. And, the guys that have gone through this, they write back and they call us and they say, it's almost like magic, because when you practice it and you track yourselves, and by the way, guys, tracking is perhaps one of the fastest ways to change behaviors, okay? Because otherwise, if you're not aware of what you're doing, it just gets lost in the mix. It gets lost in the muck of your life. But when you're given a particular sheet, and you're told to do it this way, and you've defined what those qualities are based on some really deep thinking about your legacy, man, you're in a system, right? You're in a system that cannot not work. It can only lead you to where you need to go. So this is the fifth quality. And John wrote in that these exercises shift our perceptions to get us out of that stuck mindset, to create what we want externally. And it helps us create a roadmap for what we specifically desire so that it can start happening in our lives. And I've seen awesome positive shifts in my perception of things. And I have more clarity in life after being in this group. And my family and friends have noticed a positive change in me too. And I can't wait to where I'll be in 6 months from now as I continue the exercises we did in our group. So there is a sixth shift, and it's a bonus, and I just alluded to it. And it's not a shift, it's more of the glue that holds the other five together, okay? And when you enact this, and you actually start engaging with other men, and that's the shift, to connect with other men and actively form community, it really starts to propel you into greatness. It really starts to get you towards a situation where you're mastering your own life. And porn addiction really symbolizes an underlying disease running rampant among modern men. And that's the disease of isolation. And porn by itself is an isolating behavior, right? Again, you don't do this in public. You don't do this and talk about it. You don't share about it. It's something that is very private, very secretive. And it really symbolizes our isolation. I talk to 30 to 50 guys a week. And the number one thing that guys tell me is that they are really alone and they don't have anyone to talk to about real stuff. They might have friends, they might have family, they might have colleagues, but they don't have a space to actually share what's really going on. Okay? And that is the goal of this shift, is that you must actively de-isolate yourself by seeking a safe haven. When I say safe haven, I'm talking about a place that you can have real relationships, real conversations, and get modeling. And when I say modeling, I mean, you got to find other guys who have tackled the same issues that you need to tackle and have been successful. And you need to follow what they did and learn from them. And that's really powerful. And a lot of guys are so isolated that they're not getting any modeling. They're not getting any counseling. And that really creates a tremendous amount of anxiety. So inherent in this word community and brotherhood is the necessity to help others achieve their goals. So I talk about getting modeling. I talk about you joining a community and kind of getting information and kind of benefiting and living this extraordinary life. But really, this is also about giving back to other guys and giving back to other men. Because you sitting there right now, you have wisdom. You have gifts, you have talents, you have a perspective that is useful, you have insights, and you can see and help other guys. And that's part of the isolation, is that we're not in use. We're just sitting there not really helping other people. And we're also struggling because we don't have anyone that's helping us. So this is a currency, meaning that it's not just about you becoming extraordinary. It's about you also coming in and having these conversations and helping other men. And I got to tell you that a group of brothers like this exists right now. And it's men who are taking on these shifts, the ones that I've just covered together. And the guys that are having these kinds of conversations, real ones, with motivation and excitement. And this is what some of the guys say about it. What's happening on these calls is magic. These groups you're creating are something very special and very real and very inspiring. And I'm honored to be a part of this journey with you. The group of brotherhood is in itself worth everything. You become close with the other guys and you relate with them as you're all taking action on tracking and other exercises to become a better you. And one of the beautiful things about this process is the connection with the guys. It's an awesome process that can take you to magic places. Again, the word magic. And I love connecting with the guys and feeling the common ground and the shared purpose. So today, I promised that you were going to gain clear insight as to why your previous attempts to quit porn have been unsuccessful. And you'll be shown a comprehensive approach that can solve the problem over the long run. I told you you'd be exposed to 5 foundational techniques that, when practiced consistently, can dissolve porn addiction from the inside out. I told you that you'd be shown how to practice the system starting today, starting right now, and given a blueprint to knock this addiction out of your life. That your anxiety regarding this problem will shift into excitement and inspiration as you begin to see this situation as a huge opportunity. And I really hope that's true. And that you'll feel confident that you can take this on, that right now is your time, because you've been shown a path that has worked for many other men, and it makes sense on multiple levels. And that you're going to gain access to an emerging brotherhood of guys who are dealing with similar challenges and are here to support you. And what you need to do is, first, you need to shift your belief and see your porn problem as an opportunity. Then you need to gain a basic understanding of the neurology and start applying some rewiring techniques. Then you must use your physical body to squash the porn habit. And you must craft a clear future blueprint, and you must use the power of your emotions. And then you define the qualities of your new man, and then you practice these qualities every day. And lastly, you connect with other men, and this is the glue, and you actively form community, and you have authentic conversations. So you see, this is the blueprint, right? And when you do this, you don't only transform and squash your porn addiction forever, but you actually start unleashing a life that you were always meant to lead. So Daniel wrote in that, I must say, this literally transformed my perception of reality with amazing guidance and support. I was able to befriend my feelings of self-doubt and learn to use them as a fuel for an extraordinary life. This series of practices has opened my inner eyes to unimaginable strength, vulnerability, generosity, and kindness. I recommend this program to all men who are looking for an authentic transformation, and not the quick fix that we're so often sold, but the deep, long-term shift into a life of nobility, integrity, and abundance. Thank you, Todd, for calling in this brotherhood and helping us shine our diamond heart. And Eric wrote that this played an integral part in my recent exodus from depression. Spiritual things are about greatness. It's one thing to know a lot about spiritual things. It's another to do greatness. Todd's thing is about moving from the former to the latter. If you're serious about moving in that direction, consider playing along. With these new tools, I continue to learn about making differences and dwelling in the regions of bliss. Thank you. So guys, now you have a choice. The choice is really simple. On the one hand, you can stay where you're at. And that's either that you have a really bad porn addiction that you know is a really big problem, and you keep searching and Googling and finding forums and trying things here and there to solve it, but it never really solves the problem over the long term. Or you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't know how much of a problem this really is. I can kind of live with it the way that it is. But the truth is you can't, because once you actually start understanding how much of a drain the addiction is and watching porn is, even one time, guys, just drains your energy. There's no point to it. And when you start looking at what it does to your brain, and you start realizing that there's a pull that is actually affecting you in much greater ways, you're just going to be stuck in this cycle until you decide not to be. And so right now, your choice is either to stay there or to actually say, you know what? I am going to change this. I am going to actually address this. And not only because I want to stop watching porn and I know it's bad for me, but because I'm interested in exploring this life of greatness that he's talking about. I'm interested in looking at my potentials. I'm interested in understanding how to harness that energy and streamline it into the things that I really want. And that could be more money, that could be a better job, that could be starting your own business, that could be traveling around the world and having adventures, that could be meeting your beautiful partner and having an amazing life together and starting a family, or not, right? And so that's your choice. A life of freedom, or kind of staying small, staying where you're at. And so this is how I can help. Now, I've set aside time in the next 48 hours to speak with you personally about how you can apply these shifts to end your porn problem starting right now, right? And that would be your step to actually saying yes, okay? Actually going for it. And whatever you're going through, believe me, I have seen it and I've helped solve it. I've talked with thousands of men, and this is a big problem. So what we'll do on that phone call, it's a 45-minute call, and we'll devise a curated step-by-step game plan for you that will start applying these shifts, okay? And it will lead you to ending this addiction forever. And it's free. There's no cost for it. So again, I just want to reiterate who this phone call and who this appointment is for. Set the call if you have a burning desire to get to the other side of using porn. Set this call if you have at least the tiniest glimpse of the awesomeness that can happen when you solve this problem. And set the call if you're willing to invest some time and energy into making this happen right now, if you're interested in actually getting to the other side of this. So why do I do it? Now, if you can't tell, I do it because I absolutely love helping men bust loose from their porn addictions, because I know that this process instigates monumental changes in a man's life. And I do it because these shifts and this process and these 5 components that I just shared, or these 6, are the fastest ways to achieve sustainable results. And lastly, I didn't talk about this too much in this presentation, but I'm interested in changing the game for men on our planet. Because if you haven't noticed, we have a pretty bad rap right now. And the porn problem symbolizes it. It's quiet, it's below the radar screen, yet so many of us are dealing with it. And once we address it and we uproot it and we heal it and we shift it into a life of awesomeness, we begin to change the game for men across the planet. And we actually help to emerge a new masculinity on our planet. And that masculinity has the power to change things, right, for the better. So there's a bigger game here, guys. And I just wanted to be able to share that at the end. So are you game? So how do you book the session? Just if you're on our page, go to the bottom and schedule your session. You know, like I said, I'll be here for the next 48 hours and I would love to talk with you. Now, if you're not on our page, you can visit this URL, www.manforman.us/schedule-now. Okay? But take your time. This is your time. Schedule your appointment. Okay? And when you schedule it, I ask that you fill out a very short questionnaire. It'll take you about 5 minutes to fill out because it'll help me understand at least a little bit about your situation before we get on the phone. And again, we're going to spend 45 minutes and we're going to be talking about you. Okay? This is really about you. And so take a moment and press the button at the bottom of the page or visit manforman.us/schedule-now. And let's hop on the phone together and let's bust through this problem together, guys. So that's it for today. I am just supremely grateful that you joined us. And I hope that you, consider taking this on. I'm just so passionate about this issue. And again, I look forward to talking with you shortly. Big love. Take care.